beyond the battlefield, emotional and psychological depths. Let's step away from the clashing swords and blazing weaves for a minute. Because the Aes Sedai Warder Bond isn't just about winning battles. It's about winning and losing something far more fragile, hearts, minds, and the quiet parts of ourselves we rarely show anyone. This bond is empathy on steroids, folks. Warm and comforting when times are good, but sharp enough to cut you open when they're not. It's a double-edged sword that weaves loyalty and grief, comfort and burden into the very fabric of who these people are. Let's talk about what happens when the fighting stops, when the bond's emotional and psychological depths take center stage, because that's where the real magic and the real pain lives. First up, the double-edged sword of empathy. Imagine coming home after the worst day of your life, exhausted and broken, and not having to explain a thing. Your partner just gets it, feels the weight in your chest, the lump in your throat, the quiet despair you can't put into words. That's the gift of the bond. For Aes Sedai and Warders, this emotional connection isn't just nice, it's a lifeline. Take Moiraine and Lan again. We all know them as the stoic warrior and the focused Aes Sedai, but behind closed doors, Lan felt Moiraine's loneliness, the weight of her secret mission to find the dragon reborn, the fear that she'd fail and the world would burn. He didn't say much, Lan never does, but he'd sit with her by the fire, silent, and let her feel his steady presence through the bond. It was a quiet comfort, the kind that doesn't need words. I'm here. I see you. You're not alone. And Moiraine felt Lan's grief too, the ache of being the last of Malkier, the guilt of surviving when everyone he loved died. She'd send him a calm, steady thought through the bond, a silent, your pain is mine. You don't have to carry it alone. That's the bond at its best. A safe space, a place where vulnerability isn't weakness, but strength. But here's the flip side. This empathy can drag you under when you least expect it. Nynaeve and Lan learned that the hard way. Nynaeve is fiery, stubborn, used to fixing things. But when Lan's grief over Malkier hit him hard, she couldn't fix it. She felt it like it was her own, this deep, hollow sadness that wouldn't lift, and it made her angry. Angry at Lan for being sad, angry at herself for not being able to help, angry at the world for hurting him. She'd snap at him, pick fights, because feeling his pain was easier than sitting with it, and Lan felt her frustration, her helplessness, and it made his own grief worse. It's a cycle. Shared pain can either bring you closer or drive you apart, and it takes work to keep it from tipping into the dark. We saw this with Egwene and Gawyn too. When Egwene was captured by the seanchan, Gawyn felt her fear, her humiliation, her rage, and it consumed him. He made reckless choices, risked his life without thinking, because the pain of feeling her suffer was too much to bear. Empathy is a gift, but it's also a burden. When someone else's pain becomes yours, you lose the luxury of looking away. Now, let's talk about loss and its aftermath, because no conversation about this bond is complete without the devastating cost of breaking it. When a warder dies, it's not just a death, it's a shattering. For an Aes Sedai, the bond isn't just a connection, it's a part of her. Losing a warder is like having a limb torn off, but worse, because that limb was tied to her heart and mind. The pain is excruciating, overwhelming, and it can break her in ways no physical wound ever could. Some Aes Sedai never recover. They sink into a grief so deep they can't channel the one power anymore. They go still, their ability to touch the source snuffed out like a candle. It's a death of a different kind, one that leaves them hollow, a shadow of who they were. We saw this with a minor Aes Sedai named Corrine Nagashi back in the early books. Her warder, Stepan, died fighting Trollocs, and the second he took his last breath, Corrine felt it, a white-hot pain that seared through her mind. She collapsed, screaming, and for days she couldn't channel. She wandered around, staring into space, muttering Stepan's name, like a part of her had been stolen. Eventually, she recovered, barely, but she was never the same. The bond had left a scar, one that would never fully heal. And let's not forget the stories we hear from the White Tower. Aes Sedai who lost their warders and never spoke again, who retreated into themselves, who even took their own lives because the pain was too great. The bond's promise of connection comes with a terrible price. When it breaks, it can destroy you. Stepan's own story is tragic too, in a different way. When Corrine was killed later, yes, the bond works both ways. Stepan was consumed by what's called warder's madness. It's this blind, rabid rage that overtakes a warder when his Aes Sedai dies. He'll fight until he either avenges her or dies trying. Stepan didn't want revenge though, he just wanted the pain to stop. He tried to drown his sorrows in drink, tried to fight anyone who crossed his path, but nothing worked. The bond was gone, and with it, a part of him. In the end, he took his own life, because living without that connection was worse than death. That's the Seanchan truth. of the bond. It's so deep, so all-consuming, that losing it can make life not worth living. Finally, let's talk about the warder's burden, the quiet, unspoken pressure that weighs on them every single day. Warders aren't just bodyguards. They're guardians of a soul. They know that their Aes Sedai's life depends on them, literally. If they slip up, if they're too slow, if they fail, she could die. That's a weight no one should have to carry, but warders carry it willingly, because that's the oath they swore. Lan felt it every time he stood watch over Moiraine. Every rustle in the bushes, every distant shout, every flicker of danger in the bond made his heart race. He couldn't sleep soundly, couldn't let his guard down, because one mistake could cost Moiraine her life. And it's not just the physical danger. Warders carry the emotional burden too. They feel their Aes Sedai's stress, her fear, her doubt, and they have to be strong for both of them. Lan was Moiraine's anchor, but who was Lan's? No one? Because that's the job. Warders are supposed to be unshakable, unbreakable, even when they're falling apart inside. Take Gawain again. When Egwene became Amyrlin's seat, his burden doubled. He wasn't just protecting an Aes Sedai. He was protecting the leader of the White Tower, a target for every dark friend, every seanchan, every enemy of the light. He felt her stress every time she made a tough decision, felt her fear every time she faced down the Black Aja, felt her exhaustion every time she channeled for hours on end. And he couldn't show it. He had to be strong, had to be her rock, even when he was terrified. It wore on him, slowly but surely, until he made a mistake that cost him his life. That's the warder's burden. You have to be perfect all the time, because the person you love, and yes, let's call it what it is, love in its own way, depends on it. And let's not forget the shared pain. Warders don't just watch their Aes Sedai get hurt, they feel it. When Moiraine was stabbed by a Trolloc blade, Lan felt the pain as if it were his own, but he couldn't collapse. He had to keep fighting, had to get her to safety even as his own body screamed in agony. When Nynaeve was tortured by the seanchan, Lan felt every blow, every shock, every moment of despair. But he had to stay focused, had to plan her rescue, because if he broke, she'd have no one. Warders carried two sets of pain, their own and their Aes Sedai's. It's a burden that never lifts, not even in sleep. At the end of the day, the Aes Sedai Warder Bond is about love, messy, complicated, painful love. It's about choosing to tie your soul to someone else, knowing that their joy will be your joy, their pain will be your pain, and their loss could be your undoing. It's not for the faint of heart, but for those who choose it. For Moiraine and Lan, for Nynaeve and Lan, for Stepan and Kareen, it's worth it. Because the bond gives them something no battle ever could, a sense of belonging, a reason to keep going, a reminder that they're not just fighting for the world, they're fighting for each other. In a world as dark as the Wheel of Time, where the Dark One threatens to erase everything, the bond is a light. It's proof that even in the worst of times, we can find connection. It's proof that love, even the kind that hurts, can be stronger than any evil. And it's proof that some bonds aren't just magical, they're eternal. So the next time you think about Aes Sedai and warders, don't just think about swords and weaves. Think about the quiet moments, the hand on a shoulder, the silent glance, the steady pulse of a bond that transcends pain and loss. Think about the courage it takes to love someone so deeply that their soul becomes a part of yours. That's the real power of the bond, not what it does on the battlefield, but what it does to the heart. Rare bonds and unintended consequences. Let's get real. When we talk about Aes Sedai and warders, we usually picture one Aes Sedai, one warder, standing back to back against the dark. But the Wheel of Time is messy, folks. Its magic doesn't always play by the rules. Some bonds are weird, some are twisted, and some blow up in everyone's faces in ways no one saw coming. We're talking about the rare cases, the ones that don't fit the Moiraine and Lan mold. Multiple warders tied to one Aes Sedai, channelers bonding each other, bonds used as weapons, and the catastrophic fallout when you try to snap that magical thread on purpose. These are the stories that show the bond's true chaos. Its power to surprise, harm, and rewrite lives in ways no one expects. Let's dive into the weird, dark, and unpredictable side of the Aes Sedai Warder Bond. First up, unique warder perspectives. Scenarios that break the one-to-one rule and turn the bond's dynamics upside down. Let's start with the big one, multiple warders. Most Aes Sedai stick to one. Why split that deep connection? But some, like Elaida do. Avrinia Royhan, yes, that Elaida, went all in with 3 warders at once. Imagine that, one Aes Sedai, 3 men all tied to her soul. How does that even work? Well, it's messy. The bond gets spread thin, like trying to pour water into 3 cups at once. None get a full share. Elaida's warders, Mezar, Fedwin, and Revere, didn't just fight enemies, they fought each other. They competed for her attention, felt each other's jealousy through the bond, and resented the way their connection to Elaida was diluted. Fedwin, the youngest, got hit the hardest. He felt Elaida's growing paranoia and cruelty more acutely than the others, and it twisted him up inside. When Elaida was captured by the seanchan, Fedwin's grief mixed with jealousy and guilt, and he spiraled into a rage that got him killed. Multiple warders don't just mean more protectors. They mean more emotional clutter, more conflict, and a bond that can't possibly give each person what they need. Then there's the rare case of an Aes Sedai bonding another channeler. Normally, warders are non-channelers, strong, skilled warriors who balance out the Aes Sedai's magic with physical might. But every now and then, the rules bend. Take Egwene and Gawain. Wait, Gawain wasn't a channeler, but what about Elaine Tricond and Brigitte? Okay, Brigitte's a hero soul, not a channeler, but hear me out, their bond was backwards. Elaine and Aes Sedai bonded Brigitte as her warder, but Brigitte was used to being the protector, the warrior. It flipped their roles. Elaine was the one channeling, but Brigitte's hero soul made the bond feel more equal, more volatile. When Moghedien forced Elaine to break the bond, Brigitte didn't just grieve. She started to fade like her very existence was tied to that thread. It's a reminder that when you mess with the bond's normal structure, you risk unraveling something fundamental. Another example? If an Aes Sedai bonded a Wilder, a channeler who hasn't been trained by the White Tower, the shared connection to the One Power could amplify both their strengths, but also their weaknesses. Imagine two channelers feeling each other's weaves, each other's exhaustion, each other's fear of losing control. It's a bond that could create a powerhouse or a disaster waiting to happen. Now, let's talk about the bond's darker side, when that magical thread becomes a chain. The bond is supposed to be about trust and loyalty, but some people weaponize it. Take the Black Aja, those traitorous Aes Sedai who serve the Dark One. They don't bond warders out of trust, they bond them to control. A Black Aja sister can use the bond to crush her warder's will, to make him do unspeakable things, to silence his doubts with a wave of dark emotion. We saw hints of this with Alviarin Freiden, the former Amirlan Seat's keeper, who secretly served the Black Aja. Her warder, Osmond, was a loyal man, until Alviarin twisted the bond to make him spy on the White Tower, to lie to his friends, to even harm innocent people. He didn't want to do it, but the bond made it impossible to resist. He felt her will like a weight on his mind, overriding his own morality. That's the bond's dark potential. It's not just a connection, it's a way to own someone's soul. And then there's shared madness. We know about Warder's madness when Aes Sedai dies, but what if the bond itself drives both parties crazy? Imagine an Aes Sedai struggling with paranoia, convinced everyone is out to get her. Through the bond, that paranoia seeps into her warder. He starts seeing enemies everywhere, trusting no one, even his closest allies. Or a warder haunted by PTSD from years of battle? His nightmares become her nightmares. His rage becomes her rage, until neither can tell where their own emotions end and the others begin. There's a story from the White Tower archives of an Aes Sedai and warder who became so tangled in each other's darkness that they turned on their own allies, convinced the light was the enemy. The bond didn't just share their pain, it amplified their worst selves, turning a partnership into a path to destruction. Unintended consequences don't get much darker than that. Finally, breaking the bond, when someone doesn't wait for death to sever that thread. Most of the time, bonds break only when one partner dies, but every now and then, someone chooses to cut it. And let's be clear, breaking the bond on purpose is like cutting off a limb with a rusty knife. It's painful, messy, and never without scars. The White Tower forbids it, for good reason. Imagine an Aes Sedai deciding her warder is a liability. Maybe he's injured, maybe he's questioning her choices, and she severs the bond. For the warder, it's like being hit by a truck. He feels a sudden, empty void where the bond used to be, a pain so sharp it can drive him to madness or suicide. Steppen's grief was terrible, but at least he knew Corrine died honorably. Imagine feeling that bond snap out of nowhere, knowing your Aes Sedai chose to cast you aside. For the Aes Sedai, it's just as bad. Cutting the bond doesn't just free her, it leaves a hole in her soul. Many Aes Sedai who break the bond lose their ability to channel or become so emotionally numb they can't form connections again. Take the case of a Green Aja sister who cut her bond to her warder after he betrayed her. She survived, but she never bonded another warder. She couldn't stand the thought of opening herself up to that pain again. And the worst part? Sometimes the bond fights back. When Elaine was forced to break her bond with Brigitte, Brigitte didn't just fade. Elaine felt it too, a searing pain that made her collapse, bleeding from her nose and ears. The bond is a two-way street, and cutting it hurts both ways, often more than anyone expects. There's also the rare case of the bond breaking through unique circumstances, like when a warder becomes a dark friend or an Aes Sedai turns to the shadow. In those cases, the bond itself becomes corrupted, twisting into something ugly. A warder who betrays his Aes Sedai might feel her horror through the bond, but his own darkness could override it, turning the connection into a tool of torment. We saw this with Padan Fain. Though he wasn't a warder, his connection to Ran was twisted by the Dark One, and it became a source of mutual pain. Imagine that happening with a proper Aes Sedai Warder bond, two people tied together by hatred instead of loyalty, their shared emotions turning into poison. At the end of the day, the Aes Sedai Warder bond is a reminder that magic isn't neutral. It's shaped by the people who use it. The rare bonds, the twisted ones, the broken ones, they all show that this connection isn't just a gift. It's a responsibility. It's easy to romanticize the bond when we see moiraine and Lan, but the truth is, it's fragile. It can be stretched too thin, twisted into something ugly, or shattered beyond repair. And when it breaks, it doesn't just hurt, it changes people forever. But here's the thing. Even the messy bonds, the ones with unintended consequences, are proof of how powerful connection can be. They show that love, loyalty, and trust aren't just feelings. They're magical, tangible things that can rewrite lives, for better or worse. In a world where the Dark One wants to turn everyone against each other, the bond, even the rare broken ones, reminds us that we're stronger when we're tied together. It's just a shame that sometimes those ties can cut as deep as any sword. Let's fast forward a bit, past the last battle, past the Dark One's defeat, past the world rebuilding itself from the ashes. The wheel of time keeps turning, folks, and with it, everything changes. New leaders rise, old rules get rewritten, and magic itself shifts in ways no one saw coming. So where does the Aes Sedai Warder Bond fit in this new era? Will it stay stuck as a battle buddy ritual, or will it evolve into something bigger, deeper, more vital to the world's future? And what wild fan theories are floating around about where it could go next? Let's talk about the bond's legacy, its future, and why it'll always be one of the Wheel of Time's most fascinating pieces of magic. Because, at its core, it's never just been about swords and weaves. It's about us. First up, the bond in a new era. Let's be real. After the last battle, the world doesn't need just more warriors. It needs healers, builders, bridge makers. And the bond, it's perfectly poised to adapt. Think about the new generation of Aes Sedai and Warder's kids who grew up hearing stories of moiraine and Lan, of Nynaeve and Lan, of Egwene and Gowene. They're not just fighting the Dark One anymore, they're fighting poverty, political division, the scars left by war. So why wouldn't the bond evolve to match that? Take Nynaeve, for example. She's not just a fierce channeler and a warder's partner, she's a master healer. Her bond with Lan didn't just make them deadly in battle, it let her feel his lingering trauma from years of fighting, and that connection made her a better healer. Imagine a future where Aes Sedai and Warders use the bond to heal not just physical wounds, but psychological ones too. Warders helping Aes Sedai stay grounded during high-stakes diplomacy. Aes Sedai using the bond to calm communities torn apart by conflict. The bond could become a tool for unity, not just survival. And let's not forget the new powers emerging. We saw Elaine Tricond experiment with the bond. She bonded Brigitte, a hero soul, in a way no one had done before, and it opened up all kinds of possibilities. What if future Aes Sedai figure out how to strengthen the bond's positive aspects without the shared pain? Or how to let warders tap into a little bit of the one power through the bond, not just physical stamina. The world's full of new channelers now. Wilders coming out of hiding, kids with untapped potential, and the bond could be a way to guide them, to connect them to the light, without the strict rules of the old White Tower. Imagine a young wilder bonding a veteran warder, not for protection, but to learn control, feeling his steady resolve through the bond, using that connection to master their powers without fear of burning out. The bond's significance isn't tied to war anymore, it's tied to growth. Then there's the political side. The White Tower's been shaken to its core. Aes Sedai from different ages are working together. The old hierarchy is loosening up, and the world's looking to them for leadership, not just magic. The bond could become a symbol of trust between nations. Aes Sedai from Tar Valon bonding a warder from the Aiel Waste? That's not just a partnership. It's a statement. We're in this together. The bond's shared loyalty could bridge divides, prove that different cultures can work as one when their souls are tied. In a world still healing from war, that kind of symbolism is gold. The bond isn't just for Aes Sedai and warders anymore, it's for the world. Now, let's dive into the fun stuff, fan theories and what ifs. Fans have been losing their minds over these, and honestly, who can blame them? The bond's full potential is still untapped, and the Wheel of Time's full of secrets. One of the biggest theories? Two-way bonding. What if an Aes Sedai and warder could bond each other? instead of just the Aes Sedai forging the link. Right now, the bond is initiated by the Aes Sedai, but what if it's a choice? Both make equally. Fans think this would balance the power dynamic. No more one person holding the strings, just two people choosing to tie their souls together. Imagine Lan bonding Moiraine right back, sharing not just her pain, but giving her a piece of his strength in return, a two-way flow of courage and calm. It'd make the bond even more unbreakable, and honestly, it fits with the new era's focus on equality. Another wild what if, using the bond to cure madness? We know the bond can share pain, but what if it can share healing too? Fans point to Nynaeve's ability to heal the taint on Rand's mind and wonder, could an Aes Sedai use the bond to push healing into a warder suffering from PTSD or warder's madness? Or vice versa? Could a warder's steady presence through the bond pull an Aes Sedai back from the edge of madness caused by too much channeling? It's a hopeful theory, and it fits with the bond's evolution from a weapon to a lifeline. Imagine a warder who's lost himself to grief after a battle, his Aes Sedai using the bond to wrap him in her calm, to remind him of who he is, to heal the cracks in his mind. That's the bond's future at its best, not just surviving, but thriving. And let's not sleep on the cross-channeler bond theory. What if two Aes Sedai bonded each other? Or an Aes Sedai bonded an Ashaman, male channeler? The old rule said warders had to be non-channelers, but rules are made to be broken. Fans think a bond between two channelers could amplify their powers, sharing weaves, combining strengths, creating something no single channeler could do alone. Imagine an Aes Sedai and an Ashaman bonding to weave a shield that could protect an entire city from the shadow, their powers merging through the bond like two rivers becoming an ocean. It'd be game-changing, and it's totally possible in the new era, where male and female channelers are finally working together instead of against each other. But here's the thing, no matter how the bond evolves, no matter what new twists the wheel throws at it, its enduring power will always be the same. It's not the magic that makes the bond special, it's the humanity of it. The bond is a symbol of loyalty that doesn't ask for anything in return, of strength that comes from standing together, of vulnerability that lets us be seen for who we truly are. Moiraine and Lan's bond didn't become legendary because it let them fight Trollocs. It became legendary because it let them be human with each other. Lan, the stoic warrior, let Moiraine see his grief. Moiraine, the focused Aes Sedai, let Lan see her fear. That's the bond's legacy. It teaches us that we're stronger when we don't have to be strong alone. In a world that's always changing, where empires rise and fall, where magic shifts and prophecies unfold, the bond stays constant. It's a reminder that connection is the most powerful magic of all. Whether it's a new Aes Sedai and warder using the bond to heal a community, two channelers bonding to save the world, or just two people choosing to share their pain and joy, the bond will always be at the heart of the Wheel of Time. It's not just a part of the story, it's the story's soul. So what does the future hold for the Aes Sedai Warder Bond? We don't know for sure, but one thing's certain. It'll keep evolving, keep surprising us, and keep reminding us that love, even the messy, painful, magical kind, is worth fighting for. The wheel weaves as the wheel wheels, but the bond? It weaves us together. And in the end, that's what makes the Wheel of Time feel so real, because at its core, it's not about dragons or magic or prophecies. It's about the bonds we forge, the ones that outlast wars, outlast time, and outlast even the wheel itself. The bond's future isn't just about what it becomes, it's about what it always has been, a celebration of us, of our need to connect, to protect, to love. And that's something that will never go out of style.